Hi, friends, and welcome back. So, today I have a special guest. Her name is Elise Conroy. She is a Fortune 500 beauty industry executive turned confidence coach and career advocate. She is dedicated to helping high achieving women build career confidence, elevate their leadership, and achieve executive success. Through her coaching, electrifying keynotes, the Confidence Lounge podcast, and transformational retreats, Elise is on a mission to help women stop doubting themselves and step fully into the executive influence, presence, and success they were born for. And with that, I would like to welcome confidence coach Elise Conroy.
Oh my goodness, that was such an incredible welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you too. And I want to tell the story of how we met, not met. I was on a retreat with a bunch of our coaching friends. Maybe it was only a year ago. And everybody who I'm friends with, who you're friends with, kept saying, "Well, you know Elise Conroy, right?" And I'm like, "No." And they kept going, "How do you not know Elise? You're going to love her." And I was like, "Well, why would I know her?" And they're like, "Oh, because we know each other through this and that." And we had so many things sort of in common from the coaching world. And I just kept hearing your name, hearing your name. And then we ended up in another mastermind together and met, and we're, of course, instant friends. And so I love that now you're in my orbit, and Elise Conroy, I can say, is my friend. But your reputation preceded you, which is just positive energy, great confidence, and you help so many other women develop their confidence in both their careers and in their personal lives. And I love that. So, with that, I would like you to tell the audience your backstory because it's always fun to hear where people came from and then tell us how you became the confidence coach that you are today.
Yes, it is so surreal to think about this because if you would have given me a crystal ball to look into my future, this was never ever what I saw for myself. So I actually spent almost 2 decades in the beauty industry before I became a coach. And it's interesting looking back because all of this makes so much sense. And when I got into the beauty industry originally, it came from a childhood dream because when I was a child, I was bullied really bad as a kid and I used to seek refuge inside of my mom's makeup drawer. So I really believed at a very young age if I could just make these products that made me feel so good. And ironically, it was a fuchsia pink lipstick with blue sparkle, and I loved it. My mom, just with the Avon, she always had all these samples around. So I would play with it, and it made me feel so good. And it was my safe place where if I had a bad day, kids were bullying me, I could feel safe putting on these products. So that dream was born. And I wanted to work for Estee Lauder. So I started reading all these books and I just started immersing myself in how do I become this person who makes makeup. And fast forward, I ended up having an incredible time in the beauty industry. But when I got to the top, the pinnacle of my career, there was a lot of loss of to the connection of the consumer. And it really became about the almighty dollar and how do we monetize women's insecurities. And I'm sitting at boardroom tables with men. And it just took me back to this moment in my childhood of, hold on, I really thought that I was coming into this from a good place to make these products to make women feel confident, make the women feel beautiful, and make them feel good enough. But then when they wash their face at the end of the night, there goes their confidence right down the sink. And I really thought that I was going to retire or die as a CEO of a beauty brand, and life had a very different path for me. And in October of 2018, I was on a business trip in Milan working on an eyeshadow project, and I got a call that really changed the trajectory of the rest of my life and found out my dad was sick. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. So, for the first time in my life, and this is an area where you and I deeply bonded on this is I put career second and I prioritize family first. And I walked away from a massive career. And anyone who has had a massive career knows what it takes to make a decision like that. And it was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. And when I went into that decision, I had every intention of going back into beauty. But when I walked away, it was almost like a soul calling, as cheesy as that sounds, because I kept thinking about why did I get into this in the first place? It was to help women feel confident, but I'm doing that on a very surface level. I'm giving women a temporary solution to this confidence piece, but it's not lasting because we can't create confidence from the outside in. And going on my own personal development journey, I learned that on a very deep level. And that is what inspired me to launch my business in 2019. And I haven't looked back since because I knew I had a winning formula to help women truly create this feeling. But this is where so many women make the mistake, right? We're trying to lose the weight to get the confidence. We're trying to get a higher title at work. We're trying to make more money. But this is created through the mindset piece. And this is what I now am committed to teaching women and have done for the past few years, helping thousands of women all across the world build confidence from the inside out, which has truly been a dream come true all in itself.
That's amazing. There's so much to unpack in those statements because the beauty industry both preys upon women's insecurities and then
Yeah.
tries to build them up through makeup and even you, it was the fuchsia lipstick that made you feel comfortable. It made you
Yeah.
feel pretty, made you wanna pursue a career in makeup, and you had one, a really successful one. I mean, you worked for one of the biggest brands in the world, and as you have told me off this show, you traveled around the world. You
Yeah.
went to all the great cities, and you went first class and all the
Yep.
things, and it was a whole different life.
Yeah.
Then to come back to the origin idea of, I just wanna help women feel more confident, but I'm gonna do it from the inside out instead of the outside in, is such
Yeah.
an interesting transition.
Yeah.
And it took your father's illness to really kind of create that alignment for you.
Yeah. I think it just brought me home to what was really important. And why am I doing this in the first place? And I couldn't unsee the things that I had seen once you get to that level of doing big business. And morally, it just did not feel in alignment to continue to stay doing that work. And in a weird way, it almost feels like I'm righting a wrong. And ironically, 75% of my clients are in the beauty industry. And there is so much insecurity present in that industry. There is such a cutthroat environment. There is so much scarcity and not enoughness fueling that industry. And to be able to make an impact on an industry that I love, like I will always be a beauty junkie until the day I die, but to be able to impact an industry that I love from the inside out to make this a healthier place to be that's not rooted in insecurity, that is truly one of the biggest honors of my life.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about your process with women. So, do you coach one-on-one or do you coach group or do you do both?
I do one-on-one coaching, and
Oh,
a lot of the coaching that I do is just through powerful conversations. And I have a formula that I use for all of my clients because I'm really focusing on career confidence, and I call it
mhm.
the care formula. And everything for me in my life has really come back to care because when I was in that Fortune 500 job, I was not caring for myself. I was extremely unhealthy. I was the most I'd ever weighed. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, what happened to you? You used to have this sense of aliveness and, the sparkle everywhere you went. And that job really it ate that part of me alive. And when I was bringing myself back to life, it happened through really taking a gap year and applying luxurious, unapologetic amounts of self-care. So I was thinking about how I wanted to incorporate that into my fundamental teaching. So CARE is an acronym for clarity, action, resilience, and energy, because this is really the foundation upon what we build our career confidence upon. And when we are in a place where we don't know who we are, we don't know what we want, we don't know where we're going, we're in a place where we're not taking action because we're confused or we're having too much insecurity or self doubt. When we have a low level of resilience and the challenges come and it spins us out. And then on top of it, we're facing a low level of energy and we're really burned out. We're not going to be feeling our best. And so I have found that the easiest place to start building our foundation upon is care because it really all starts there.
Mhm. So go through the acronym again.
Yeah.
C is for clarity.
Yep. A is for action, R
Uh-huh.
is for resilience, and E is for energy.
Got it. And does that formula have actionable steps or is it different for every person?
What I love to do is seeing out of these 4 steps where it feels most out of alignment, where the struggle in their life is really consisting because it always comes back to one of these steps. And when we're in a place, especially with the C, where we have low self-belief and we're not clear on why we're valuable, or we have high self-doubt and we're having that imposter syndrome, but we don't necessarily know why, we can't change what we don't see. So it really all starts with the C. But when I am diagnosing somebody, I look at all 4 steps and take an assessment of where they're at in every category, and typically, all 4 are really low.
And you work with people for 3 months, 6 months? What's your process?
Yeah, 4 months. I do executive coaching for 4 months.
Okay. And when they're coming to you, presumably they are employed, they're burned out. A lot of them are in the beauty industry. They've had, just like you, very little self care because it's go, 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 travel, travel, travel. Everything was corporate first.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin? Like, give me an example of like, where do you meet them?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question, and it's meeting them exactly where they're at and just owning that and admitting it, and I find so many women come to me and the first thing they tell me is, "I'm so embarrassed that I'm here." And I'm
Mhm,
like, "I'm not embarrassed, I'm not sad about this, I'm celebrating this because it is so courageous to ask for help." And for
mhm,
so many women, and a lot of the women that I'm working with are director to C-suite level, they feel like they should have it all together. And I
mhm.
say should with air quotes, right? Because there's this rule book, and you know this being a very successful woman yourself. it's very hard to admit for the first time, and I went through this when I was seeking help as well. It's very hard to admit that you are struggling when it comes to confidence when you have this very high level of an outward perception of success. So we've got to meet the person exactly where they're at, honor the struggle, honor the realness, and really be honest about what's happening. Because once again, if we're not being real about it, if we're not getting past that first stage of embarrassment and that fear of judgment, we're not going to make any changes that are actually going to be of value.
That is so powerful. Do you think it makes it worse? I know because I worked in Hollywood for 30 years, there's always the comparison to what people see on the screen, right? And then not that executives look like movie stars ever. And I'm not that the executives at Estee Lauder or any other makeup company look like their models. But
Yeah,
do you think because the focus is so much on the final product of the light, the shot, the video, the commercial, the this, the that, that it creates this unattainable image of what women are supposed to look like, sound like, be like? Is that
100%. Yes. Yes, yes,
so it's
yes.
kind of
Resounding
like
yes.
it kind of reinforces the reason maybe they got into it in the first place, which
Yeah.
was, "I want this thing to cover up what feels scary for me."
Yeah, 100%. And what people don't realize about the beauty industry as a whole is as much as it is a female dominated industry for an end consumer aspect, it is run by men. And I can't tell you how many
Mm.
times I faced moments where I was about to run into a meeting and I'm an executive and I didn't have any makeup on my face. And I would have a man stop me and say, "Hold on, you can't come into this meeting like this." And they would have me,
Wow.
yeah, they would have me go put on makeup. And it created a lot of conditioning for me. And this showed up really hard when I launched my business of if you're not perfect, don't show up at all. And I think for so many women in the beauty industry, perfectionism takes over because think of what we think we have to be, right?
Right.
And when you believe that everything has to be flawless, this can lead to so much not enoughness or so much procrastination that is induced by perfectionism and avoidance because you feel like you're always falling short. So if you're not perfect, don't show up at all. And that's what I had to unwind when I started my business. And I think about another factor of what really motivated me, and I didn't realize this at the time, but what motivated me to get into the beauty industry is my dad. Because when I had my makeup on, I always got a lot of praise. So if I was working in an industry where beauty was at the forefront, I was going to make everybody happy, right? And who suffered the most? Me.
Wow. Isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
And I'm sure this is true for so many other industries, the weight loss industry, like think about, how big that is and the
Yeah.
perfectionism that goes into that of people having to look perfect, you
Yeah.
know. And then on top of it, you're not only just dealing with the facade of makeup, but you're also dealing with the facade of lighting and photoshopping and
Hmm.
editing and just everything. I mean, that's not even what the model looks like.
Right. Well, and let's talk about aging. I just saw Mel Robbins posted a new podcast and it was about anti-aging and there's no such thing because I think we as women are conditioned to think that aging is bad, right?
Mhm.
And I posted a comment on there and just saying how many industries would suffer and how many businesses and brands would suffer if we were taught as women to love ourselves, to think we are beautiful without makeup, to see that wrinkles are something to be celebrated versus shamed. And I can't tell you how many times I sat around a boardroom table and we would have images where they say, "Oh, retouch her dark circles more. Oh, enhance this." Because if we do that, it will trigger an insecurity within us as women to buy more product and generate more money. So I always tell women, you've got to know what conditioning has been offered to you to
Yeah.
understand your purchasing decisions. Because if we loved ourselves, if we truly felt confident, there's a
Yeah.
lot of business that would suffer.
Oh my god. It's just like I think about like how the way advertising has gone from magazines and newspapers and commercials to some degree now to social media,
Yeah.
which the instantaneous nature of scrolling and seeing something that you want or them keying into something that's a pain point.
Yeah.
And social media is so prevalent because it's on your phone and while you're looking at your emails, texts, friend's new baby, what have you, there's that ad for that eye cream or that concealer or that eyeshadow or eyebrow pencil, or like that thing that's going to like make the difference. That's
Yeah.
going to make me feel younger, more beautiful, less embarrassed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And then we wonder, why do I feel bad about myself? Why am I comparing myself to this person? Why am I sitting here thinking, like my mom used to do something where she would go in the mirror and she would lift up her jowls and she would go 20, 40. So this is no coincidence that we are in this
Wow.
place of why we feel this way. And this is when I said righting my wrong, this is what I mean. And I had a friend go to a plastic surgery appointment because I live in Los Angeles. That is a very normal thing for so many of us, and especially when we get into our 40s. And that was what was happening to me in beauty. When I was 29, they were telling me I was aging out, which is insane to me. It's a very young industry for women. And people would say, like, "Oh, are you going to get plastic surgery yet?" And so I had a friend who was in beauty going to get plastic surgery. And I told her, "Do not do this. This is not going to solve what you are feeling. You think if you get this procedure done, you're going to feel a certain way, but you're not." And what ended up happening is she went into the plastic surgeon's office. He then mentioned she was getting a breast augmentation. And so he mentioned, you know what, you could actually benefit from some filler in your lips. You could also do the tightening here. You could also get injections here. And so she not only left with more insecurities, now she's thinking, I have to pay to fix all these problems. And she
Wow.
still doesn't feel better about herself. And this is the lie that we're sold as women. And this is why
Wow.
I'm so deeply committed to showing women this is not an outside in problem. Confidence is really an inside job.
But men don't age out of the beauty
No,
industry,
no,
and they don't wear makeup to meetings.
no.
That's interesting.
Uh-huh.
Only women. And the idea is when you're at a pitch meeting or what have you, that you need to look young and youthful like the product.
Yeah, and it depends on the brand too. And it also
Mm.
depends, is it a male-owned brand or is it a female-owned brand? Because there's big
Oh.
differences in the operation of how each work.
Oh, why is that?
Because I think there's gender roles, I think there's standards, I think there is this internal operating system of how women are supposed to show up versus how men are supposed to show up, and I've worked for both, and I've had female founders that say, "Come in your pajamas, come comfortable. I want you to feel comfy," and that was so beautiful. And then there is the idea of the men in the industry saying, "We have to always be, air quote, on brand."
Mhm.
And that was what was hard. And that was even coming down to when we interviewed candidates and them wanting to see, and this is so legal, by the way, right? It's like them wanting to see pictures of these people or having me as the hiring manager go down Google rabbit holes to try to find what these people looked like to make sure that they were on brand. And that to me is just absolutely disgusting.
Wow.
Hmm. I'm
Wow.
spilling all the tea today.
I know, I like it. It's fun to know that there's other dysfunctional industries outside of Hollywood.
Oh my god, I know. But especially in LA, it's so bad. And it's funny because some of the New York brands, you know how different New York and LA are. New York isn't all about the makeup and the over, it's like LA is such a maximum, just everything over the top environment. New York isn't the same, right? New York, I think you can get away with a lot more, but it is also very male dominated in New York as well. So,
And you only work with women, yes?
yes.
And all of your clients are professionals, I presume, whether
Yeah.
they're in the beauty industry or not.
Yeah.
And they come to you because their confidence is low or they're burned out or both?
Yeah, it's usually imposter syndrome and not enoughness, which go hand in hand, are
Sure.
some of the number one reasons because they struggle with things like as simple as speaking up in a meeting and not getting in their head and doubting themselves. And when we get into the space where we're overthinking and we get into that trap where we think, oh God, let me think about this a little bit more. Now all of a sudden we're silencing ourselves in meetings. We're not going for it. We're not putting ourselves in the big room. We're not taking the opportunities and they end up holding themselves back. And they know that if they could just have that barrier removed, where the confidence was high, the courage was high, the belief was high, the trust was high, and they were able to actually take the action, that they could do the thing. So I help them figure out whatever barrier it is, whether it is perfectionism, imposter syndrome, analysis paralysis, compare and despair, all of our friends, right? And I help them remove those barriers so that way they can live up to their own potential and get out of their own way professionally.
That's so good.
I
That's
love it.
so good. Yeah, it must feel like a salve on a burn,
Yeah.
to have that permission
Yeah.
to be authentic, to be yourself, to speak up, to not
Yeah.
be afraid.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of that imposter syndrome is met with people pleasing,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They're perfect partners.
aren't they?
Because if I say no, and we talked about this when you came on my podcast, if I say no and I don't do what they needed to me to do at work, or if I go to the doctor's appointment, then I'm going to get fired or whatever it is. So I've got to say yes to all the things professionally, say no to all the things that I want to do. And right then here comes people pleasing, burnout, bitterness, resentment, all the things that we don't want to feel. So I've noticed this really interesting connection between Women that have the desire for perfection and the desire to people please, typically at some point confidence is going to run low.
Mm. And when you see this happen in the workplace with the career women, do you see it also echoing into their or trickling into their personal life as
Of
well?
course. Yeah, they go hand in hand. And it's funny because people hire me to coach on career related things.
Mhm.
But for example, a Fortune 500 company just brought me on, and during the consultation process, it was a man. And he's like, I don't know what it is. She just never seems to feel good enough. And she feels that she's a woman and something's going on. I was like, it typically is going to be something that happened in childhood where it created this not enough monster vibe. And he's like, how did you know that right away? And it's so clear for me to see that there
Yeah.
is some pattern that happened very young and it is now trickling into life stuff. And so in our first session, I was like, tell me what happened as a kid. And right away, it was parents putting so much pressure on her to be perfect. She only got praise when she achieved at a high level. So now she is killing herself every single day, overworking, hustling, working 100-hour weeks trying to prove herself, but she's already holding an executive title. There's nothing left to prove. But she can't get out of her own way because that little voice in her and that little version of her, her inner child, still just wants to be validated. She's still
Yeah.
seeking that praise. And right
Yeah.
now, she's being haunted by, I always say, the not enoughness monster, where we can keep feeding that monster all the things, all the achievements, but yet it's still not good enough. And I went through that too in my career. I remember one of my biggest years in my previous career. I had just gone through this project. We had developed this product that went in all doors of Target. It was a massive success because things like that did not happen. And I
Right.
went and did the pitch to Target. I developed the whole formulation. That year, I ended up winning Employee of the Year. I got a massive raise. I got a title jump, and I didn't even take a second to enjoy it. I was just like, okay, well, I could have made more money. I should have pushed harder. And I didn't even let myself relish in it because I was always moving the bar. So, how can
Right.
we ever feel good enough as women when we have these high standards for ourselves? We don't even know what the end result that we're trying to go for is because we're always moving the bar. We can never
Yeah.
live up to our own standards. And I
Yeah.
have women come in and I have an exercise that I call SPF. And I have all these acronyms that are beauty acronyms. I can't get away from it. It's still just in me. But SPF stands for success, perfection, and failure because most of us don't have a clear definition of success, or we're still following this idea of what the American dream is. You know, got to have the house, got to have the car, got to have the perfect husband, whatever, make lots of money and have the status. But that's a broken dream at this point because nobody has the same idea of what that even looks like anymore, right? So we've got to
Right.
identify that. We've got to know when we achieve it. Same thing with perfectionism, same thing with failure. And what do we make all of those things mean about us? And if we don't have clarity there, it's going to be a real shaky place to build our confidence upon.
Yeah. So good. Could you distill down if somebody's listening to this podcast and they're thinking, "Oh my god, I so suffer from imposter syndrome. I'm in that middle management, on my way to VP or senior VP role. I don't have the confidence I need." Do you have like a little like teaser or appetizer for what somebody could do today, a thought or
Yeah.
an action just to kind of get them unstuck on that feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really comes down to you empowering yourself to see your own value. And
Mm,
especially when it relates to business, if you can answer the question, when you walk into this company, why does the bottom line of this company become more valuable because of your presence there? Oh my gosh, that's going to deal with so much of it because you need to be able to know that about yourself. And I
mm,
always tell women the foundation of confidence and you operating as a confident woman in the world is going to come down to your self belief, your self trust, and your ability to take action while feeling uncomfortable. Because for me, that is my success guarantee. I don't think any emotion is bad or good. I just know that there are some emotions that feel more uncomfortable. And that's what stops so many women because we wait for the confidence to do the thing. But no, it's courage comes first. You've got to be in a place where you have to be able to courageously say, this is why I'm great, and not dull yourself down and not feel like you're too much and not feel like you're tooting your own horn too loudly. There's a way to do that where when the confidence is inherent and you really believe in yourself, that you're going to be able to just speak to that with ease. So if you can answer that one question about yourself and not worry about coming across as arrogant or not worry about having to say too many words to make your point, that's half the battle right there. So I would really encourage anybody who's listening to just go look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself why you're valuable and look in your eyes and see what you want to pull back on, see what feels icky, see where there's a high level of resistance, because that's going to show you where your growth is.
mm. That's really good. Tell people how they can work with you, where they can find you, how they can follow you, all the things.
Yes. Come visit me inside of the Confidence Lounge. It is one of my favorite places to be. So, that is my free weekly podcast where we break down all things career confidence. So, you can find me on Apple or Spotify or wherever you love to listen to your podcast. You can learn more about the work that I do on my website as www.soulmakeup.com. And if you want to come hang out with me on LinkedIn, that is my favorite place to show up on all the different platforms. So, you can find me at Elise Conroy. Elyse. I know it's a weird one. I always have to tell people it's like take out Elise on a car because if not, they usually say Elsie.
Oh, that's funny. Elise, thank you so much. I encourage people who are in that corporate hierarchy, who are looking for a coach to build confidence, gain insight to their own success. Reach out to Elise, follow Elise. She is full of great information and she has been there and done that. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time. It was an awesome conversation.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I look forward to talking to you soon. And bye for now.